everyone, my name is Discourse and welcome to another video for the Batman Miniatures game. Today I just wanted to talk about the new Kickstarter game that Night Models, or I should say Night Games, have recently revealed. So this is a new Kickstarter property that's coming out in fall of 2021 is the current sort of date that they've put down for that. And it's a board game that Night Models are popping up on Kickstarter. And Night Games have released a video on their YouTube channel about that. You should see a link to that in the description below. That is where all the footage behind me is coming from. And as far as I can tell, this is basically a cooperative board game where you're working together to try and escape Arkham Asylum whilst Batman's sort of chasing you down. And it seems like there's going to be some trader mechanics perhaps in that. If you're familiar with something like Battlestar Galactica, maybe it'll be a little bit like that, but we're not really 100% sure yet because details are scarce. This has only been sort of revealed today, and they have revealed so far that Poison Ivy, Bane, Penguin, the Joker, and Harley Quinn, they are all available to play, and that there will be more supervillains released as time goes on. And they've mentioned that more of these villains will be released as part of sort of Kickstarter tiers. So the first thing that I noticed was that obviously there's a lot of sculpts of Batman characters. So this looks like this Kickstarter might be a good source of alternative sculpts for the Batman miniature game. Now, Night Games themselves have said that the size of the models is 35mm, which is sort of technically the size of the Batman miniature game. BMG is officially at 35mm, but I have noticed that there's quite a lot of variation between the second edition models and the third edition models. So they're not always the same scale necessarily, but you know, you don't usually notice it. So the models that Night Games have revealed so far, they look to be probably a little bit bigger than the actual Batman miniature game models, but that's only speculation on my part, and it's judged off some images that we've been shown, whereas officially speaking, they should be to scale with the Batman miniatures game. So, the reason why I wanted to do this video today was, first of all, to let people know that Night Models are indeed doing a Kickstarter for a property, and if you're a fan of Batman, this might be something that is of interest to you. I know there's been some really big Batman Kickstarters. I have only opted into a few of those. My weakness for the animated series has led me down an expensive path. So there, now you know, and you can check out the trailer and wait for fall 2021 for the release of that on Kickstarter. Secondly, I've seen a lot of panic, really, that Night Models might be stretching themselves too thin, or that this is taking away development time from the Batman miniature game and putting it into a potentially poor product, or that even that Night Models are completely focusing on board games going forward rather than simply the miniatures game. And I suppose a lot of these concerns are all sort of linked in, right? They're all sort of, they're coming from the same place. Basically, that Night Models' attention is going to be diverted away from the miniature game towards this Kickstarter product. So the sky is falling. Well, first of all, let's breathe. So first things first, any development that would have been taken away from the Batman miniature game from this Kickstarter is already gone. It's already lost. Any lost development time is mostly done already. So how Kickstarters work is that the production for them begins long before Kickstarter itself becomes involved. So Kickstarter honestly tends to operate more similar to a pre-order system. Kickstarter is basically the very last step in a very long process. So personally speaking for me, I'm not really concerned about the impact that this is going to have on the Batman miniatures game, because that's already been felt. And in fact, I presume that was actually felt over 2020. It's where I imagine most of that development time going into this Kickstarter, as opposed to the Batman miniature game, was probably felt. I haven't forgotten you, Big Bang Theory. So this Kickstarter has already been competing with the Batman miniature game for attention for a while now. And really, the Kickstarter release and reveal is sort of the final stages of that. Now, of course, there's funding tiers and there will be stretch goals for the game. So the more people that back the Kickstarter, the more product that will be created as part of the Kickstarter process. And they've already made allusions to this, that hundreds of supervillains will be available to play with. But I'm not really 100% concerned by that. Because to be honest, most of that seems to be like it's going to be molds of supervillains. And we know that Night Models can release molds. That's never really been the issue with Night Models. We know they can make them. But can they deliver them? That has always been Night Models' Achilles heel. So I'm not really 100% concerned about this element of competing attention. I don't think that the Batman Miniatures game is going to be hit too hard by this additional Kickstarter. Now, secondly, this is actually being done by Night Games, so I've probably switched pretty naturally between Night Games and Night Models, pretty interchangeably, and probably in relation to the wrong things. And that's for a very good reason. It's because I don't think there's much of a distinction between these two entities. I think this distinction is very, very minor. Now, Night Models have said that it's a separate team, the Night Games team, who are working on the Kickstarter, as opposed to those who are working on the Batman miniature game product. But honestly, I suspect that the team at Night Models / Night Games are so small that this is pretty meaningless. I'm pretty sure that it's the same team, and that would make sense. There's gotta be a lot of overlap between these two teams, right? Because they're gonna be using the same designers. But this is just speculation on my part, so this might not be correct. It's just I really think that that's the case. But that doesn't really bother me that much, to be honest, because I'm very, very satisfied with the release schedule for the Batman Miniatures game. If the impact of this new Kickstarter is currently being felt by the game, then, I mean, it hasn't been an issue. The problems that Night Models have with the Batman Miniatures game, it's not related to the release of new products. Well, it is, but it's not related to the actual design, creation, and ability to sell these new products. I'm very satisfied with the release schedule of Night Models. Every month, there is a new package, a new bundle to buy. The existing crews are currently being stocked up again. I mean, we've already seen Punchline be revealed for the Joker, so it looks like this next month is going to be a Joker month. Previous to that, we had Penguin, and then previous to that, we had Black Mask. And then as we go back more and more, we had the Riddler, we had Two-Face. Then it starts to get into the Big Bang Theory, Soldiers of Fortune. It doesn't look so good in 2020, but Night Models are back on track. In certain regards, they are releasing new models. Now, their arrival is something else, but they're releasing new models. That's not the problem. The problem that Night Models have is a problem of ancillary issues. It's not in the design of new miniatures. It's not in creating rules for new miniatures. None of these are issues. The issues that Night Models have are related to the production and business side of their operations. They have consistent issues with delivering product at a reasonable speed. They have stopped using cards for the units, which a lot of people were fine with. I wasn't one of them, but a lot of people were fine with the removal of the unit cards so long as it would help assist with getting the models out faster and sooner. And they created an app to compensate for this. Well, the models have not been produced faster and they have not been issued out any quicker. I'm still waiting on my Black Mask. Now it's on its way, but I'm still waiting on it. And the app has not been released. It's an open beta. Fine, I'm willing to accept that. I have access to the app, so that's good for me. But it's not available for iOS. We've been waiting weeks for Penguin's cards. Now, I have some sympathy around the app itself because I know that the developer who is sort of looking after the app suffered some sort of personal tragedy of some kind. I have a lot of sympathy for that element. But the lack of unit cards, even on the website, for the Penguin models, I think has alienated a lot of players. Because we've been waiting weeks at this stage for them. And the app itself is a very powerful tool. I'm actually very impressed with the technical prowess of the app. It's just that its inability to be accessed by most of the players is just one of a number of missteps on Night Models' part. And I think it's these sort of frustrations or the things that are driving people's panic and distaste with the new Kickstarter, because people feel that it's taking attention away from the Batman Miniatures game whenever the Batman Miniatures game really needs a lot of help. But the problem is that the Batman Miniatures game has never had an issue of models. The models have always been perfect. Well, they come with a lot of flash, but you clean them up. You have to clean them up. I mean, it's resin. The Batman Miniatures game problem is not the core product. It's everything around it. And Kickstarter or not, that is something that is very much built into the DNA of Night Models, and they need to begin to take steps to address that. And it looked like they had taken steps to address it earlier on in the year, but to what effect remains to be seen. Now, this has been conjoined with some additional transparency from the company, which has been really pleasant, been really nice. Like, they announced on Facebook that there were going to be delays in a lot of the shipments of products, so it was fair enough. They let us know that that was the case, and it looks like those products are now being shipped. I've noticed that third-party retailers in the UK certainly have started to receive new product from Night Models. I've seen that the Gotham Crime Lords, for example, is available to buy on a retailer. I've seen, for example, that some of the organized crime models are available to buy in third-party retailers, whereas the Riddler models and things like that weren't. They were all sort of stuck in this pre-order limbo. The organized crime wave seems to have arrived and now is being sold by third-party retailers. This is brilliant, because third-party retailers are really the lifeblood of the game. They help export the rule set to new people who are shopping for other things. Because the Batman Miniatures game has an IP that people are interested in. It has a very strong IP, and it's something that should be leveraged more often by Night Models. Now, this board game is going to contain models that are of the same size and scale of the Batman Miniature game models, and they've been hinted to be compatible with the Batman Miniatures game. So this has raised the obvious specter of, are they going to be releasing these models as Batman miniature game models, but only available in the board game or as part of a Kickstarter campaign? And my opinion on that is I really hope that that's not the case. I'm personally probably going to back this Kickstarter because I'm a big fan of board games. I'm a big fan of cooperative board games especially. I like the Batman IP, and if they're the same scale, I would really love to use these models as alternative sculpt. I think that would be really awesome. I think alternative sculpts would be the road that Knight models should go down. I'm happy with that, with them releasing them as, you know, to scale with the BMG, because why not, right? It's easy. It's an easy win. You may as well get some of the Batman miniature game players involved. They'll want to pick up the board game for that reason. And some of the sculpts look pretty good. I like the Joker one running. It's very, very animated version. But I don't think rules should be included in this Kickstarter campaign. And I don't think the models should be new or special in any way, because that really does play on FOMO, and it's not very consumer friendly at all, because it locks behind certain experiences of the game behind very inaccessible tiers. This Kickstarter won't be around forever. It'll probably be very expensive to pick everything up that you want, so it'll be very exclusive. And I'm fine with some exclusivity. For example, the Bruce Wayne model or some of the sillier models that were released at tournaments. I'm okay with that to an extent, but Nine Models are talking about potentially hundreds of models being released as part of this Kickstarter campaign. And I do not want hundreds of models being unavailable to play because someone didn't happen to opt in to a Kickstarter campaign. I don't think that's fair. So I wouldn't be able to support that. But overall, I must say, I'm excited for this. I hope it turns out to be pretty good. I'll probably be backing it myself. And I hope it does actually get quite a lot of stretch goals. But I hope they have planned for the stretch goals. I'm sure they have, but I hope that they are ready to take on the work, or that they have already put the maximal amount of work into it beforehand, and that actually this is going to slot nicely and neatly into their current production schedule. So what are your thoughts on this? What do you guys think? Am I being too optimistic? And as always, thanks a lot for joining me. I shall see you in the next video. If you do want to subscribe to the channel, feel free to go ahead and join me on the next video, and I shall catch you then.